20 years is the anomaly. It doesn't happen.
I'm only going to ask this question because I'm from Pittsburgh. And I remember I went to a Thrashers game and I saw the two jerseys. I took a picture, Lemieux and Crosby. And Lemieux is the owner and captain. And ironically, the year that he stepped down, the Pens won the Stanley Cup. I know you're different team, different perspective, but that creates a very different dynamic, right? I don't know if that's been recreated at all. Has there ever been an owner, player, captain? I don't in NHL history, or I don't even know any sport in history.
Probably not.
I don't think so. But looking from the outside, because I've spent a good amount of time in Quebec City. One of my best friends is up there, and at the time, Patrick Wall was the coach for the Ramparts. And Canadian hockey is not another sport. And for those of you who are in India, it is a religion, and the pressure is so high. We actually had Team USA Youth for basketball coach, who's an investor of the company and was one of our speakers. The level of pressure coming from having a coach who was already from Colorado, and even before that, winning Stanley Cups as your coach, at the Ramparts, having that perspective. But can you imagine having that person be the effectively the coach? Because even when Lemieux is on the ice, I always feel like the coach and the general manager are providing suggestions to the owner, who's the captain, is the player. Do you have any perspective or thoughts on just that whole dynamic? Because Sidney Crosby came through that program and was basically the golden child coming out, and then coming into the Pens. It just is just like in history. I've never seen anything like that. As you were playing, any thoughts or perspective on that dynamic? Because I'm sure that a lot of locker rooms are talking about it.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most unique, like, there it can get, in sports. I don't know any other owners who are on the ice as well. And I'm sure it can create a, a little bit of intimidation. I think also, when you have people of like Mario Lemieux stature, even like last night I was watching potentially Alex Ovechkin's last game. Those guys are godlike anyway. Like, even outside of the ownership title, I don't even think it matters. I think when you're on the ice with one of those guys, in the locker with one of those guys, the impact that they've had on the sport and just on everything, it probably doesn't even matter. You're more scared to screw up because of who they are as the hockey player than even the impact that could be from like an ownership
But
or.
is that a negative? Because I think that, founder-led companies like myself being in the seat here are very, very different from CEO hired gun companies, right? Where there's a different level of how the context is. Yes, the CEO may be the boss, but they're still reporting up to the board and the ownership structure, versus this is like a completely like squash function. The only thing I can liken it to right now that you might be able to relate to is Sergey Brin coming off his $100 million or $200 million yacht and being in the coding pits of Google, where he's actually building code and building applications decades after, and being in that. But it also changes the dynamic, because that fear, or like, oh, this is effectively Sergey Brin, what he's worth, like over 100 billion in net worth, coming back in the coding pits with a whole bunch of developers around him. Does that any thoughts or perspective? Because it seems like it'd be as negative as it is positive.
Well, I think too, and I'm open to be wrong about this. I don't think Mario Lemieux was like the majority owner. I think he had a piece of it. So, and even within that, there's probably decisions being made that are he wasn't really a part of. If I remember the story correctly, I believe they gave him that because they couldn't pay a salary. uh, so it was a great thing, I think, to for him and for like the investment. But I really don't think at that time, he was necessarily making like the decisions as a franchise. Even though within that context of who Mario Lemieux was, he probably wasn't going to anyway, even if he wasn't an owner. So Yeah, I think there's some similarities there, and also probably some differences between like being the main guy, the owner. That would be probably different.
So, I mean, Yarmir Yager lived down the street from me. I remember I used to deliver the paper, and he couldn't speak English at the time. You're not Yarmir Yager, meaning like you're not 70 years old still playing hockey. Is he still playing hockey?
He was as of last year, yeah.
As of last year, Yarmir Yager, how old is he? Is he 60?
I actually don't know the answer to that.
Can somebody
definitely,
Google
definitely in his
how
50s.
old Yarmir Yager is?
Definitely in his 50s.
Now, I'm not going to talk about his history with gambling and stuff like that, but he has played a very long time. You playing, 13 seasons with Winnipeg and then going to the Rangers, which I love the rivalry between the Pens and the Rangers, always loved it. Uh, 20 years, is that a long time? It sounds like a long time for an athlete. How is that in terms of the NHL? What is that? That seems like a long period of time to
Yeah,
be a pro athlete.
20 years for context. Ovechkin, I think, is 21 seasons. 20 years is the anomaly. It doesn't happen.